So it's been about 2.5 years since I left the news desk and traveling all around the world to London and now to Vancouver to do my PhD. So I thought this might be an appropriate time to reflect upon this year and talk about the good and the bad parts, including the regrets I have around this grand decision. This will be a pretty long video, so feel free to grab a cup of tea or notepad if you want to write down anything that might inspire you while we talk about life. So firstly, I'm going to share sort of the backstory of why I quit my job as a financial news anchor. Secondly, I'm going to share the good parts of my life right now, what it's like to leave the glitz and glamours, a fast-paced broadcasting industry, moving away from a full-time job to be in a more uncertain, financially precarious grad student life. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about the bad parts of my life right now, uncertainties, fears, and doubts that I have about myself and leaving my previous professional environment. Then lastly, I'm going to end with a few recommendations that people might want to hear for those who aspire to be news anchors, writers, also those who want to pursue higher ed like a PhD in North America, or anyone who like to just come out of their comfort zone and simply challenge themselves to become a better human being by doing something new. So do feel free to skip around if necessary, as I will include a timestamp below. So let's start with the backstory. Fall in 2019, this was my 7th year working as a financial news anchor. I was living a life that was the opposite of everyone else's. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. at night, start looking at the US stock market, prepare my scripts, go over my junior reporter's topics, and get the script from my writer at 5:30 a.m., go live on the news desk. I try my best to stay sane, look, and speak effortlessly while so many things happen. Overcoming sleep, responding to everything that the producers would say into my ears for a whole 2 hours.
네, 시청자 여러분 안녕하십니까? 2월 10일 월요일입니다. 한 주를 여는 또 첫 거래일 저희 글로벌 이슈 투데이와 함께 하루 시작해 보시죠. 정세입니다.
7:30 a.m. the show ends, and then we have a brief meeting till about 8:50, and 9 a.m. I'm off from work. I had already worked 7 hours then, and every day I experienced this weird feeling of going home when everyone else was just starting their day. If any of you who want to work in the broadcasting industry, I'd say that you have to be ready to cope with this kind of schedule and this kind of lifestyle where you have to be physically incredibly fit and also be okay with not having the regular work schedule like everyone else. Now, this was not the end of my day. Usually I'd have other audio recordings, radio, interviews that I do with other stations like Arirang TV, and work as an MC at international conferences and forums representing Korea. I was sort of at the peak of my career, and I really, really loved my job. I was good at it, I loved doing what I was doing, and I loved interacting with audiences. But at the same time, I definitely felt a glass ceiling. My full potential as a female news anchor was reached, and I needed a new outlet. Of course, I have always had my personal wants of marrying someone and found a loving family, but also as a person who cherishes values and mission of my life to make this world a better place for younger generations and also contribute to the world that I am part of, I knew that I had to find a new way to do something different than before. I had to come out of my comfort zone. So that ended up being pursuing a master's at the London School of Economics, the school of my dreams as a financial journalist. But as a full scholarship recipient all throughout my undergrad, I told myself I won't go unless I receive financial support from my grad school. For those of you who are interested in hearing more about my LSE life, click this as it has a whole playlist. But unfortunately, COVID hit, unusually complicated situations continued, everything became uncertain, and I missed the deadline for the scholarship as my application was held in the admissions office for too long. In the end, I had to make a choice whether I would stay in Korea and keep working as a prestigious financial news anchor or leave everything behind, use all my savings to pursue a master's in a city of my dream, London. For those of you who have followed me for a long time, you know what decision that I had made. This was a dramatic shift. After I decided to come to London, 3 things hit me. First, I had to let go of my financial security. That meant I had to come back to a student life, being in a student dorm, sleeping on a tiny, tiny little bed that gave me a backache every day, and look for ways of saving and spending as little money as possible all the time, as the cost of my master's was not at all cheap. The quality of life had to drastically change, and I basically had to use all my savings to do my master's in London. 2, being surrounded by 20-something-year-olds who freshly got out of college are the ones that I had to study with. It was very, very difficult because I was away from the academia for about 10 years already, and coming back after such a long hiatus was not an easy thing to do. I practically forgot how to write an essay, so I had to look up my old external hard drives and looked at my college papers. 3, the pandemic made my experiences in London some of the worst that I can explain. The so-called colonial and imperial past of the world powers, experiencing overt and covert racial discrimination. These were all rude awakenings for me to look at the world with the lens of power differential and injustices. My personal experiences led me to explore my research topics that are often based on injustices. So in a way, all these hardships that I did not necessarily want and expect led to my third passion, which was to study farther, pursuing the highest degree, a PhD. Now that I have gone through the first semester of my PhD in Vancouver, here are some of the good parts of my life. First, I get to do the work that I love, and I love learning. As a news anchor, I was always yearning to learn more, to develop a sharper insight. I always wanted to become that person whose insights are so great that people loved listening to that person's ideas and thinking. Looking at socio-political, economic problems at the intersection of big tech, media, and education, I wanted to be able to have the eye and the mind to explain why the things happen the way they are now, and be able to provide solutions to those problems. Moreover, as a strong believer in education, I do believe that every adult is responsible for creating the world that the younger generations could live in. Second, shaping the future of my life as well as contributing to the world. I tend to research the topics that have to do with justice. I like to look at injustices that systematically happen in a modern world and like to come up with a critical framework to understand why they are happening the way they are and how we can fix them. This is where I provide my usefulness to the world, and this gives me a sense of reward. I'm nowhere not struggling with money, but work gives us multivalent meaning in addition to just earning money. It gives us a sense of purpose in life and how to live a meaningful life through our work. And we generally feel happier when our work reaches more meaning beyond fulfilling our own needs. Third, living in a culturally, linguistically diverse international setting. Meeting great academics. Seoul definitely was a fantastic city. However, working in the fast-paced media industry that imposed certain cultural and systemic restrictions on a female news anchor, I yearned to be back at a culturally and linguistically more vibrant area. Now, let's talk about the bad parts: career, anxiety, self-doubt, financials, and family matters. Now, there is always this career anxiety that I have to overcome. It is a very long marathon. It may take up to 5 to 6 years to complete my PhD, and I may have to do a postdoc after this as well. I have no idea how it's going to unfold. But what I'm telling myself is that this is the most beautiful life or time that it will never come back. 지금 이 순간이 가장 찬란한 순간이다. I deeply try to believe in that in order to overcome my career anxiety. 2, self-doubt. Yes, oftentimes people think the PhD is something that the smartest people do. But that's totally wrong. PhD, the more you learn, the more you feel that you know nothing. And this kind of self-doubt is something that you have to fight with all the time, 24 hours per day. Sometimes negative thoughts come to you and they kind of devour you. I need to fight with that. Thirdly, financial insecurity and family matters. I embarked on my PhD at an age of 35. And this is not the earliest age to begin my PhD. And, you know, there are things that happen throughout life. And these hardships, you can't expect, you can't anticipate them, but they do happen. So you just have to know how to navigate those when these things happen. And I do want to tell people who want to pursue PhD to be aware of all these things that would happen in your life. Lastly, let's talk about some of the recommendations after I went through this 2022 PhD wrap-up. Number 1, I try really, really hard to practice good thoughts. I try to do a systemic self-reflection, sort of a mind gymnastics. I try to go over what I did well and what I could improve every month. I do a monthly reflection. Now, this is a key when anxieties kick in. We all experience insecurities. We all have self-doubts. But the moments that make you fear your future and doubt yourself the most, you have to work to embrace and resist those at the same time. You gotta acknowledge that I am not perfect. I always have a room to grow. And journaling, praying, meditation all help. Number 2, know that sometimes you need to unlearn things. Now, this is something that I realized that I have to unlearn a lot of things that I've learned through the work that I was doing as a news anchor. Now, that was 10 years of time of learning. So, in order to unlearn certain things that I have learned, like company culture, social rules, norms, work ethic, that I used to believe it was the right thing, but it actually turned out to be wrong or misleading. We have to know that at certain points and in certain phases of life, you gotta unlearn things. Just like when you move into a new house, you throw out some of the old stuff that you've had in order to move into a new house. Fresh start needs to happen with throwing away your old stuff too. So as much as we try to learn and equip new things to better ourselves, we have to unlearn in order to be better. For me, that is shedding a lot of the things that I have learned while I was working as a financial news anchor in a highly competitive, fast-paced, capitalistically driven environment. Number 3, get out of the fear that what people might think of you. Now, I fear this as well. I won't lie, or I live with this more specifically. This is something that I need to unlearn as well. My work as a financial news anchor or announcer gave me this fixed image that I had to stick to. I was forced to look a certain way. I was expected to sound a certain way. And I was expected to dress a certain way even though I was not that person. Korean culture doesn't always allow our uniqueness to blossom. And that's something that we have to fix as a culture. So at this time, I tried to find my own voice again here in Vancouver, back to where I was when I was an aspiring, dreamy young teenager who had many dreams to look forward to. Number 4, whether small or big, if you achieved something, make sure you celebrate those successes. You deserve every celebration. This world that we live in doesn't tell us how important we are, how valuable we are. We have to think, why not? Why not? Why can't I do it? What I say and what I think in my head is a manifestation of myself and my reality. So think outside the box. You can do it. Number 5, skills and leadership. Now this is very important. You gotta build relevant skills and a sense of leadership to do the work that is more in demand. The world changes so fast, so as the labor industry. So you have to always explore and test yourself, make a database for your own career development, and be able to make decisions as you go along. Because the world changes so fast now. Am I well suited for a company work? Am I more of a creative and entrepreneurial person? What specific skills do I have that I can offer to the labor market? What values can I create and cherish that benefit the world? The kind of work that will be more in demand are the creative ones. You gotta be your own brand, and that means you gotta build specific skills that are in demand, and you have to be able to lead others. Leadership is always a powerful skill to have because you will know how to convince people. So this is my 2022 wrap-up. Thank you so much for listening and watching this long video. I take much joy in creating videos where I can share what I learned through the challenges of my PhD life, and hope this encourages you as well. Thanks so much for watching. See you later. Ciao.